It may not look like it, but this is a street in one of Delhi's richest suburbs. Vasant Vihar is home to diplomats, embassies and many of the city's elite. It's also the headquarters of the UN's refugee agency, the UNHCR, and these Burmese refugees are camping here to raise awareness and protest against their treatment. The people here are desperate, the conditions appalling. There's no clean water or sanitation, and 700 people are crammed into this alley and subsist among the flies and rubbish. Some are malnourished, and the raking coughs of TB can be heard through the camp.
My husband is vomiting blood. I've been begging around for help, for even 1 rupee, because my husband's suffering.
2 of Jamila's 3 children also have TB. As she tells her story of escape from Burma a year ago, tears well up in the men and women around her. For this is her story, but the tales of rape, torture and abuse are also theirs.
There's a lot of persecution against us. Mothers and sisters have to endure atrocities from the military junta. When our kids walk to school, as young as 8 years old, the military simply pick them off the streets to force them to work.
Kashida Ahmed gave birth to a baby girl 40 days ago. It was a difficult delivery and she has wounds that won't heal. She can't breastfeed, and money her husband earns from recycling rubbish provides enough for just 1 meal a day.
I want a bright future for my daughter, and for that, like any other person, I want to be able to provide for my baby. My life is destroyed. I want a future for my child.
The Rohingyas are Burmese Muslims, rendered stateless by the military junta 30 years ago. Their land was seized by the state, and the Rohingyas aren't even allowed to marry without government permission. Kashida and Faiz Ahmed fled Burma a year ago to the largely Muslim state of Jammu and Kashmir in India's north. They say conditions there are terrible and they've been denied access to healthcare and education, basic rights afforded to all refugees in India.
We just would like the people outside to go back to where they came from. I don't want them to put themselves through what they're going through. We have extreme weather conditions here. There are women and children in that group, and we will continue dialoguing with them. But it's not possible with a crowd of 700 people outside.
The UNHCR has classified the Rohingyas as asylum seekers, not refugees. Naina Bose rejects the core allegations of the Rohingyas that they're being discriminated against by the UN's peak refugee body.
This is a country where we do not have a national legal framework, and India has not signed the convention. It is commonplace to treat different refugee groups differently. For us, the core issue remains protection. How best can we protect these people? So by registering them as asylum seekers, we believe that we are fulfilling our core mandate of protection.
Unlike the Afghan refugees of the north or the Sri Lankan Tamils of the south, the Rohingyas have no cultural or historical ties to India. So while the national government offers them health and education, they often miss out at a local level because they have no one to champion their cause.
It's basically a question of connections. If there are connections with the Progressive Schools Association, then they'll get schooling. If there are government schools, good government schools, there is a lot of pressure from Indian applicants to take their children. So, it really depends on what leverage the Rohingyas have. And it's something that the UNHCR on its own is not equipped to do.
The UNHCR has registered 1,800 Rohingyas as asylum seekers in India. Hundreds of thousands more have fled to Bangladesh over the past 3 decades. Conditions there are miserable and malnutrition is rife, but only a fraction live in these authorised refugee camps. Most live in informal camps, where they're often denied access to humanitarian aid, and their illegal settlements can be torn down by the government at any time.
They're almost a forgotten people. There is no public support for them, because people don't know about them, and the press doesn't write about them. So unless there is substantial international pressure, the liberalization that has taken place because of Aung San Suu Kyi is because of her following and her reputation. But the Rohingyas have no charismatic leader like that. So I don't expect there to be any substantial or significant improvement in their case, until countries like the United States or the European Union and all take it up.
The US, Australia and others are now relaxing sanctions on Burma, a reward for progress towards democratic reform. The international community says it will continue to raise human rights issues, including the plight of minorities. But Rohingya's leaders say that sanctions relief should be tied to human rights and citizenship in Burma for their people. Otherwise, they fear being condemned to a future as stateless people, without rights and any hope of returning home.